To get started, we'll look at state politics. On the line is Christine Couzens, State MP for Geelong. Christine, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the program. First of all, over the last week or so, there's been a leadership spill or an attempted leadership spill in the opposition. Were you watching that closely, and do you think it's better to face in a coming election Michael O'Brien or Brad Batten or Tim Smith, or any preferences there?
No, not particularly. Yes, it was interesting to see it play out last week in Parliament. But, that's a matter for them to resolve. I'm certainly, not particularly interested in what they're doing.
Daniel Andrews has been sidelined, and we wish him a speedy recovery, of course. But how does the dynamic change when the Premier is away and you've got, of course, James Merlino as the deputy filling in, and a bit of some people are calling it the B team of the government?
Yeah, look, nothing's really changed. Obviously, we all wish Daniel well. It was a terrible accident that he had, but he is on the mend, which is great. And, of course, James Merlino, a very capable Deputy Premier, has now stepped up to do that. So, the thing is that our policy direction doesn't change. Our reforms don't change. So we're just powering on and doing what we need to do.
Right. International Women's Day has happened over the last month, but also we had the March for Justice event in Geelong, and I saw that you were part of that. Just describe what that was like, being out there with all those people outside Trades Hall.
Yeah, look, firstly, I was really proud to see so many women in Geelong come out for the March for Justice and to support women and girls in our community. Look, I think, lots of women there were very concerned about what we saw at our highest level of government, ignoring or failing to even consider what was happening for women and girls in our community right across this country, including Geelong. So there were grave concerns about any direction or the lack of direction that the federal government were taking. So women came out and voiced their disgust.
Do you think that the culture in state politics is better than federal politics? There's been a lot of question marks over what's going on at Parliament House federally. Are there similar issues at a state parliamentary level?
Look, from my experience, I'd have to say no, it's nothing like federal politics. That's not to say that things may happen, but I'm not aware of anything in particular going on apart from, and we all saw Adam Somrak get sacked by the Premier for his disgusting words against our Minister for Women. So I think, and we actually have parliamentary services that have a code of conduct. There's a whole range of policies in there for staff, and there's, a code of conduct for members of Parliament. And my understanding is that that's being reviewed at the moment to ensure that MPs, staff, the public are protected in any way from any unacceptable behaviour.
Do you think the march achieved what it set out to achieve?
Yeah, look, I do. I think it raised to the fore the importance of dealing with these particular issues. I don't think it's over yet. I think there will be a lot more that comes from this. There are demands about legislative change, about the federal government putting back the funding they took out of family violence services, support services for women, childcare. There are so many aspects to it that impact on women. So there are calls from right across the country to actually do something about this.
I see that there's, on a similar issue, been some concerns in the paper today about a female teenage umpire in football, and AFL Bowen has responded, but you're also quoted in that article. Are you aware of what actually happened in that instance where allegedly sexist abuse was hurled at that teenage football umpire who had to send a number of players off, I believe?
Yes, that's right. Well, what happened was people were emailing me to tell me what had happened at that football match. I'm absolutely disgusted that sort of behaviour actually occurred on the ground and off the ground, in fact. As I said in the article, the AFL Barwon need to step up and do a full and frank investigation into what actually happened.
More broadly, how do you try and get that aspect of the culture out of local football, do you think?
Oh, look, I think a lot of it's education and awareness, making people aware that their behaviour can be intimidating or unacceptable. I mean, I think we've got a very long way to go to change the culture in our community. And there are many good people out there that do step up and say, that's unacceptable. I think the fact that we've now, over the weekend, announced the consent awareness going into the respectful behaviours course within our schools is a fantastic step taken by the government.
And just on football, football returns to Geelong. Of course, we've had a number of games over the last few weeks with AFLW, but the male football returns to Geelong on Friday, and I believe tickets are going on sale from today. Do you know if there's talk about whether the crowds will be capped at 75% or 50%? Because I did hear during the news there's talk that some of the crowd limits could be raised from 50% to 75%.
Yeah, look, I think those negotiations are ongoing. The Chief Health Officer and the clubs will come to an agreement on what's the safest way to, let people into the ground and the numbers. But I think, people are very aware of the risks and are taking every possible precaution. So, I think, hopefully the numbers will increase so that people can enjoy the game, everybody that wants to go. But, I think it's one of those things where, the precautions are there for a reason. So those negotiations will probably continue earlier this week as well.
I believe the Geelong capacity is about 30,000, so 50% of that's 15,000. 75% would be about, 22,000. Does it make a lot of difference if you've got 15,000 or 22,000 people there? I mean, either way, it's a mass gathering. I'm guessing they all have to come through similar entry and exit points, which could be an infection risk.
Yeah, look, I think it's about spreading out the crowd. So, and I know I hear lots of arguments about that, but it is, managing the crowd, spreading them out, ensuring that people are wearing masks and social distancing. So, the smaller the crowd, the easier it is to do, obviously. And we do rely on people doing the right thing as well.
A lot of talk today about Extinction Rebellion in the Melbourne CBD, and I believe they've also been on the steps of State Parliament protesting and suggesting that we need to have more urgent action on climate change. What are your views on that protest? Because I think with, for example, the March for Justice, people are happy when a march takes place. It's been foretold in advance. We know where it's going to be, and it's not overly disruptive. But when people start to disrupt major CBD intersections, is there a limit to how far we're willing to tolerate protests?
Oh, look, I think, as a government, we've been very clear that people have the right to protest. I think raising the issues, making the community aware of the issues around climate change are really important. So I don't have a problem with them protesting. Obviously, I would expect people to follow the procedures to ensure that, people stay as safe as possible, wearing masks, social distancing, those sorts of things. But, I still very strongly believe that, organisations, individuals have got a right to protest.
When the protests are highly disruptive like these, does it make you sort of stop and think and say, gee, maybe we should change our climate policy because these people are clearly quite passionate about what they believe in?
Well, it's not our climate policy I think they're protesting against. I mean, the Victorian government is leading the way in Australia in terms of climate policy. So, I think, obviously we continue to do more and more, but I think, the issues sit very strongly with the federal government.
Now, I saw there was an event where Burrell was returning land in Mount Dunedin, I think it was called Dunedin Estate, to Wadawurrung traditional owners. What was that like? Because I'm told from the people there that it was quite an emotional experience going through that sort of event.
Oh, look, congratulations to Burrell on this initiative. This is a piece of land that traditionally, well, all the land was traditionally owned by the Wadawurrung people, but they were gathered up and put on that particular site and lived there for quite some years before, King Billy passed away, who's buried in the Western Cemetery here in Geelong West. And I think, the significance of that has been, really an exciting thing for Wadawurrung to have that land handed back to them. So, Borrell's done an amazing job in passing that back on. I know, there's been lots of negotiations go on for some time, and the event on Friday was the end result of that.
Do you know what the plan is for that space now that it's been handed back?
Yeah, I think the Wadawurrung are looking at what they can use it for, and, I'm not going to speculate on what they may or may not do, but,
fair enough.
I think, will be used for some cultural education and those sorts of things at this point.
All right, fantastic. And just last of all, I see seniors have free travel throughout this week. Is that anywhere in the state they can go?
Yeah, that's right. It's really important that we, support our seniors to get out and about. So, yes, they will have free travel right across Victoria.
So they could go to Melbourne, but they could also go all the way to Wodonga, I'm guessing, and beyond. So it could be quite interesting for them.
That's right. That's right.
Fantastic. Look, thanks for being on the program. We'll talk to you again next month.
Thanks, Mitch.
Christine Couzens there, the state MP for Geelong.